This is Ben Landesman with Lawson Screen and Digital Products.
This is Deborah Sexton.
This is Peter Walsh with M&R.
Scott Ritter with the Decorated Apparel Expo.
And you are listening to Two Regular Guys
Podcast.
hosted by Terry Combs and Aaron Montgomery.
A gift to the industry.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. It is Friday, June 19th, 2020. I'm Terry Combs. You can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. Today, Terry, we're going to be turning over the microphones to Kristine Shreve for another installment of Women in the Industry, Women in Garment Decorating. And this is going to be awesome. We've got a great panel lined up. When I say we, I mean Kristine has a great panel lined up. And
we have facilitated a great panel.
Yes. The best thing we're going to do, Terry, is get out of the darn way. So
exactly.
It's going to be a great conversation. Wonderful people here. And I can't wait to learn myself. So I've got my dry erase marker and board is completely wiped clean so I can start making notes. Yellow legal pad is ready for Terry. So indeed, we're all set and ready. So let's get a couple people checking in here real quick, Terry. Todd says, good morning, all. And I'm going to probably not get it right, but Ghosta, I'm going to go with that. Eric will have to help me on that at some point. Hi from Midsummer, Sweden. Yeah, gosh, we got to figure out a way to do a live on location from Ghosta's place there. Yeah. And we've got Eric in the comments as well, and we appreciate him making all this happen. And Jeff is also checking in this morning. So as you guys are checking in, please feel free to say good morning. But Terry, to start this off, let's allow ourselves enough time and save some news items till next week. But we have to do the dad joke, right? I mean,
well, I think it goes without saying now that it's become a staple of our program.
Yes. And who better to do the dad joke than Kristine, because we have talked her into loving them. Kristine, is that true?
I don't know that that's exactly accurate.
Before we went on, I said that I knew you would want to, and you're like, well, I don't know that I want to, but
I will. I have come to accept that this is one of the things I must go through in order to be a part of this show.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, it is, the mic is turned over to you for the quote unquote dad joke here.
Well, I'm trying to pick one. There's a couple let's try this one. Why do bees have sticky hair?
I don't know.
Don't know?
No.
Because they use a honeycomb.
That is
and I have a bonus one too, because I just like this one. It's inappropriate to make a dad joke if you're not a dad. It's a faux pas.
All right. Well, that was a faux pas, and
that was a faux pas, since I am not strictly qualified to be a dad, I guess. Right. in any number of areas.
I'm a granddad. I'm all those things. So.
And yet you don't like when I say you're a fairy grandfather. So I don't really.
I'm warming to it. Fair enough. All right, Aaron. Hey, before we dive in, we want to thank everyone for checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. If you are listening to the podcast version, we would appreciate you sharing with your friends so they can become regulators too. And we would also love and appreciate you giving us a review on Apple Podcasts, newly onto iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening to the show right now. We are always looking for new guests. If you or anyone would like to join us on this show, go to calendly.com/2. That's the number 2, regular guys, and tell us what your show ideas are. We love to have new folks on the show, or we love to have, after 8 years, some folks come back and see us again. If you are watching us live right now, join in with your comments and your questions. Reach out to your industry friends so they can join us too.
All right. Well, let's so we can get into this right away. Let's hear a word from our sponsor, Impressions Expo. What is Impressions Expo? Impressions Expo, formerly known as ISS, is the premier trade show dedicated to the imprinted and decorated apparel industry. They have 5 shows that are produced annually in each region of the United States, including Long Beach, California, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Orlando, Florida, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and cap off the year at Fort Worth, Texas. Each of those 5 annual shows also feature over 30 seminars and hands-on workshops in categories such as screen printing, embroidery, digitizing, digital decorating, and much, much more. Visit impressionsexpo.com for more details, and while there, use the promo code RegularGuysIE for a free expo pass. Again, make sure you visit impressionsexpo.com to get more details. And the 2 regular guys look forward to seeing you there. All right. Well, thank you very much to Impressions Expo, and make sure that you are supporting them. As it looks like they've got 3 shows that are going to happen as far as we can tell, and all indications. So those are coming up, and going to be some good ones. And there's there's going to be some great stuff happening. In fact, one of our guests here today has got an event coming up that I'm sure we'll get to talk about. So looking forward to hearing more about that. But all right, Kristine, let me get out of the way. Terry and I. Now,
well,
Kristine,
before you guys go, did you see Todd's comment?
I did, and I was actually going to just bring that up. So Todd said a comb joke for Terry. Nice.
Okay, see, Todd, there's a line, and you crossed it, man. Now you've hurt my feelings. I mean, I'm a sales guy, so if I had feelings, they'd be hurt right now.
Well, the intention was I didn't even think about that, but once Todd said it, I was like, okay, that's kind of funny.
I say that a lot about the things that Todd says. That's kind of funny. Sorry, Todd.
Nice. All right. Well, we've got some other regulators checking in. We appreciate you guys there. And you guys, we'd love to have Kristine, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we'd love to have their interaction. So you'll be looking into that. And Perfect. Okay. Well, let's do this, Terry. Let's get out of the way. And Eric, if you could start bringing in the guests, and Kristine, all yours.
All right. Ooh, I'm blurry. There's Jenny and Nicole and Cheryl. Yay. Now, the first thing we have to do, ladies, because we forgot to ask you to submit bios so I could introduce you properly, is I'm going to have to ask you all to introduce yourselves so that we know a little bit more about you. So let's start with you, Jenny. Just what's your company? What do you do? That kind of stuff.
Good morning. My company is Z Shirts. I've been doing screen printing for 7 years and embroidery for 3 years. We are just outside Indianapolis, Indiana.
Cool. And Nicole?
I'm Nicole Rollander, and I head up Strand Writing Services. I've been doing that for 3 years, but I have been an editor and a journalist in the decorated apparel industry for quite a number of years, and currently have a lot of clients in this industry.
Yep. And Cheryl?
Hi. So my company is Just My Imagination Designs, and I run a Facebook group for sublimation folks, sublimation for beginners and beyond. And last year hosted the first sublimation summit in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is coming up September 10th through the 12th. And fingers crossed, everything is going to go well, because obviously the pandemic is, put some, people on edge about going. But that being said, the Crown Plaza, which is where it's hosted, is open, and they are having weddings and all kinds of events. So
the odds are good.
Yes, thankfully.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being with me today, ladies. I really appreciate you all being here. And the reason that I'm so glad you're all here is because we're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, which is marketing to women. And particularly what I'd like to do today is talk about how women are marketed to in this particular industry. And like a lot of things that become topics in this particular podcast, this is one where I saw something that basically annoyed me. And I went, why did they do that? And then somebody said, oh, we should do a podcast about that. And I said, okay. And here we are. So, and that's kind of how it works a lot, honestly. It's apparently I can be enraged by any number of subjects. Who knew? But one of the questions that I wanted to start with, because this is one that I encounter a lot, what's the one stereotype about women that advertisers use that really you just dislike the most, that really annoys you the most? And I'm just going to put somebody on the spot because that's kind of how this works. Nicole, let's start with you. What's one? Yeah. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm glad you put me on the spot. I love the. I will say, because what I do for a living is write, conversion copywriting and stuff in industries. But I also am marketed to as a business owner. And I find that one of the things that was really coming up for me when I thought about your questions was this idea that we all want to have it all, and like, what is the all? And so it's this nebulous idea of, you can, so for me, it could be you're running a business and you're only working 2 hours a day and stuff. And I think that it's this idea of, if you think back to like the 90s, when it was like, you can have the corner office, you can be the mom, you can be the wife. I think sometimes there's this really nebulous idea of we can have it all. But what I find is that you really have to drill down into really specific problems that your particular audience is having. So if you're, marketing to buyers in schools or, buyers in fitness, they're going to have very different problems and concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just throw a really quick example because I feel like this might explain what I'm saying. Somebody, hey, do you want to be financially secure? Well, what does that mean? It's like, follow your bliss. What does that mean, right? But if your audience their concerns are, hey, I want to pay off my bills, I want a pair of Italian leather boots, and I want to go to Italy, something that's really specific, you know exactly what their concerns are. And so I think, it's really drilling down into what particular women, buyers in industries, like what are their concerns and how are you going to solve them? How is your customer experience going to address those concerns? So if they don't have time to, for example, pick out shirts or designs, how is your solution going to help them? You know what I mean? It's really drilling into what do they need to make themselves look good to their boss and to their.
Instead of kind of assuming that, women want to have it all, which is that's a whole nother thing. The assumption that every woman wants to have the corner office and kids. And, it's like women are different, not every woman wants the same thing, I guess, is where I'm going with that. But anyway, I think that one's interesting. Cheryl's nodding down there. So Cheryl, what do you think?
Well, I totally agree with you. And I think for the last few years, so much has been about the millennials. It's like, advertise to the millennials, like as if no other ones exist except for the millennial. It's like, to me, that is short-sighted. And honestly, I think they disregard the majority of the people that are out there, the women that are out there, the buyers, because I mean, it's proven that women are buyers. I mean, take it from me, because I do buy a lot. That's the truth. So yeah, well, I think that's the thing that bothers me, is when it's aimed towards one sect versus and the assumption that that's the important one and everything else is kind of not. Yeah. And especially I can go with that too. And Jenny, what do you think about this one?
To kind of piggyback on Cheryl's there, if it's not being advertised towards millennials, it's always women with children. It's always the mom making the lunch. It's always the mom taking the kids shopping. It always seems to be if you are old enough to have kids, then you have kids, then you're always with them.
Yeah. So which, as someone who is old enough to have kids and never has had them and never wanted them, I'm with you on that one. That annoys me, that the assumption is that if I am of childbearing age, that my only concerns are what to feed my children for lunch and how to wipe up their spills and, that kind of stuff. And it's like, it is annoying, and you can feel very unseen a little bit, because it feels like everything's aimed at this particular demographic of which you're not a part. So I totally get that. And I think that leads me to another question that I want to ask. And to ask this question, I have to preface something that probably nobody here but me is going to remember, but I'm going to tell you about it. There was this perfume back in like the 70s called Angeli. And they did this ad. Jenny's laughing. Maybe she remembers it. And they did this ad, and the jingle was apparently very good because I still remember it. But the jingle was, I can bring home the bacon, I can fry it up in a pan, and I can never, never let you forget you're a man. And seriously. And the whole thing about this that I wanted to bring up and talk about with you guys is that everything about that advertisement is about the woman meeting the needs of someone else. I can take care of my kids. I can bring home the money and take care of my family. I can, look after my husband, obviously implied sexually. I can do all these things, but there's nothing in that advertisement that's about her taking care of her. And I feel like that's something that I want to discuss is, and obviously we can't solve all the issues of society today, but what does that say about how we think about women? That a lot of the advertising that's aimed at women is aimed at getting them to take care of somebody else. So I'm going to throw that one at you, Cheryl, because it's fun to put people on the spot.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, because I am a mom with 4 children,
right?
I went through an identity crisis when my youngest one left, because it was like, okay, so this is my identity, and I think a lot is instilled from, commercials, and it's like the mom that takes care of everything and everyone, and shame on you if you don't. So I definitely had a struggle with that. I really did, because it was like, okay, so now what am I? What, even though I had been a business owner, I owned my previous business for 20 years, but it was always the priorities had to be my family first, but, and based on probably society saying, if you're a good mom, your kids are doing all these things and they're the priority. And it's not that children aren't a priority and your husband isn't a priority, but that, there is a balance, and we should be, at some point, we should have ourselves up there as well. So I think I do think it's interesting that you are bringing this up. Maybe I need to think more about me. No, I'm kidding. Well, because that's the flip side too. It's like there's another side to it where, and maybe you guys can appreciate this, but being on Facebook, and I have lived my life virtually on Facebook. That's kind of where my business is. And everybody is taking a selfie, and everybody, I mean, it's amazing to me how things have shifted when it comes to families, and it comes to, because there really is a whole lot about me. So
yeah, that's true. Well, I saw both of you smile. Jenny, why were you smiling?
I was chuckling about the commercial because just recently my husband and I were talking about old commercials, and that was one of them.
Wow, I figured I would be the only one who would know that, because I assumed I was probably the oldest one in the panel. But isn't it funny that still all those years later, that stuck with me? Yeah. I mean, I never wore the perfume. So, I mean, good marketing, I suppose, but the message is horrible. But so what do you think about the message that we get from a lot of the advertising that's aimed at women is your needs come second, or your needs come, after everything else?
I personally feel like it's because it's men who are doing the marketing, and they're trying to help you talk your husband into, oh, can we buy this, kind of feeling that, the family's running control, and you have to get their approval to buy anything, that you can't do it on your own.
Well, that's a whole, and I think we're going to put a pin in that and maybe come back to it, because that's a whole different thing, is the attitude that women don't control their own money, their own buying decisions, their own. So I got to stick a pin in that one for a minute, because I want to ask Nicole about the current question, but we got to circle back to that one. So Nicole, what do you think? Because I saw you kind of laughing too a little bit.
Right, nodding. So I'm a younger Xer, and I have 2 young kids, and I run a digital business from home. So you can imagine, with the pandemic and kids doing school at home and running a digital business, you can probably imagine what that's like. But I was nodding because I was thinking, like, I've studied a lot of the influencer marketing sphere and what influencer marketing does. But a lot of the influencers are millennial women, and they have kids. And you probably will nod when I say this, but when you scroll through Instagram and you see their white couches and their white pillows, their kids are outfitted in the same outfit, and they're like in a flowery or lacy dress, and it's like these filters and everything looks fabulous. And and then I'm thinking to myself, well, what does my kitchen look like right now? And what does this kitchen look like right now? And so I feel like there's this, again, I talked about the idea of women having it all, but I feel like there's this idea of putting a filter on things. And so if I'm a woman running a business, I should be able to be spending all of this time with my kids, and I should also be spending minimal time on my business, because it should just run like clockwork. And then there's this feeling of lack that comes up of like, well, no, actually I'm working, 8 hours a day, and my son has peanut butter all over his face, and he's running around downstairs yelling. And then maybe we'll go outside for 10 minutes and go look at the garden. Like we're not laying around, outside looking up at the clouds with like and whatever. But I feel like, because I feel like, influencer marketing has become such a huge thing, and a lot of people, especially, in apparel, are using influencers, that there's this idea of alienation. So when I look at that, I wear black most of the time, not white. My hair's not flowing in the wind. So I guess I'm just saying that for me, in my own personal space of running a business and having 2 young kids and trying to find that balance, which, I've got a baby business. It's not even 3 years old. And so finding that balance is still there, so I'm feeling like, well, apparently I'm not making 6 figures a month and floating in the wind and holding my kids' hands and bubbles flying around. That's what I see as sort of a trend in marketing, and where, like, as women, especially during the pandemic, and because of the digital space, we can launch digital businesses. It's a huge thing. 5 years ago, it wasn't. Now it's a huge thing, women launching digital businesses. Yep. And this idea of, you have kids, you can be at home with them, you can be making lunch, you can be doing your hair, you can be writing something or doing something in your business, and it's all great. So, again, that idea of alienating people, who that's not the reality, and it's not the reality for anyone, I don't think.
Well, what a lot of people, I think, don't remember or don't realize is that those perfect mommies that are showing up on Instagram in that one picture, they spent 8 hours making that one picture. It's a job. It's not like their life falls like that.
Correct.
And that's the thing that really is tough. And then there's the whole thing. Carolyn's been talking here. Eric, can you put up the one where she's talking about on the flip side? Okay. On the flip side, when your kids grow up and leave, now you get to take care of your elderly parents. This cycle is really prevalent for women right now. Huge issue for us in our late 50s to even 70s, because parents are living longer. So that's also a thing, I think, that this whole image of the perfect mommy and the perfect kids and the perfect house and everything. It's like caretaking, whether it's children or parents or, whoever you're looking after. It's hard work, man. And nobody, the advertising doesn't show that. When they do offer a solution, it's always like, oh, this will make everything all better and your life will be perfect. And it's like, dude, so not that way. Oh. But I think that's a real thing. I mean, I really want to circle back to what Jenny had said earlier about that a lot of the people who are, and I'm going to rephrase a little bit, but a lot of the people that are creating the marketing that is being aimed at women maybe don't really have any idea what women need, or are making assumptions about what women need without really having the data. And I guess that kind of leads me to the question, if you had one thing you could tell people who market to women in this industry or outside of it, but more in this industry maybe, what would you tell them? What one thing would you either like them to stop doing or you wish they would start doing? And I'm going to put you on the spot, Jenny, because you haven't been on the spot yet. So if you had to pick one thing, what would you tell them to do?
One thing.
You can have more than one. I'm not picky.
I know that a lot of advertisers do focus groups and actually talk to real people, but I feel like maybe if they do that, they kind of take the information and say, oh, okay, and then do what they want anyway. I just feel like like you said, it's not really marketed to real people, to real women, real life. People that have kids, people that don't have kids, like you said, it's, for you, my best friend doesn't have kids, and I know she feels the same way. It's like, the Clorox wipes are for cleaning up your kids' spills, or the Bounty paper towels, or,
right. You're an outlier somehow if you don't. Well, and the thing that you said earlier that I thought was also something that I wanted to bring back was the assumption that if you're a female business owner, you have to go talk to somebody before you make a decision about buying a piece of equipment, or that, I mean, that's a whole gender politics thing that's like, wow. But
yeah, we were actually at a trade show, and I knew I wanted to buy an automatic press, and I had narrowed it down to a couple, and we went and talked to a couple of different manufacturers. And my husband was with me. He owns the business with me, but he does not work at the business. He's just in name only. And I would ask the questions, and they would direct the answers to him. And he would just stand there he's like, I don't know. They would physically look at him and answer the questions, and they were not. And I said, okay, we're finished with them. We walked away, and we went and bought another one.
Well, and that was actually one of the things that I also wanted to bring out too, is I kind of hope that some of the companies out there that market to women and, try to sell to women at trade shows are listening to this, because that kind of stuff right there is, they're shooting themselves in the foot so badly.
Yes.
But before I get too far off into the woods here, let's circle back to the question we have before us. Nicole, what do you think about what one thing would you like to see advertisers stop doing when it comes to women?
Right. So obviously, focus groups are important, knowing your ideal customer avatar based on actual real people. But what I keep coming back to is the user experience, because it's not just the quality of the product, it's the whole experience. So what annoys me is when I'm advertised to, and it's like, well, it's going to be this great experience, and then they say this is what's going to happen, and then they don't call you, or they don't email you, or they don't send you the thing when it's supposed to be sent, and then they don't follow up with you. So I think that for me, since owning a business, the most important thing to me has been, what is the whole experience? What if you're really concerned with my quality of life and me not having to do everything myself, then from end to end, you need to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible. You need to stay in touch. Okay. So it's not just about the product and how it's going to make my life easier. It's also about, how the experience is going to be. I use an online software for contracts, and it was malfunctioning. And I was like, how easy is this going to be? And I was able to go online, put in my email address. A person called me 30 minutes later, spent 5 minutes on the phone with me, said, I'm going to resolve this. And he followed up within 15 minutes with an email, and then another email, and they resolved it. And that company does advertise a very easy user experience. And so I think, again, it's not just thinking about one piece of the customer's experience with you. It's the whole experience, and how easy can you make it? How can you put on autopilot for me so that my life truly is made easier by your service or your machine or your decorated apparel?
Or just your shopping experience. I mean, how many times have you gone to buy something and the site is just a convoluted mess and you can't find anything and you can't, and it's like, so I think valuing your customers' time is definitely important. I would agree with that. And Cheryl, what do you think?
So I think that when they're marketing, I think they need to really think about the stage of life that people are at instead of generically marketing to people, because I do think that matters, and knowing your customer. And so I think the focus groups are important for companies, especially if it's men that are running the company. And as somebody said, men definitely, most of them have companies, marketing companies, and so they think that they know women, or whatever. I was gonna go back to what I had said earlier about the millennials and focusing on that. But I also think that they need to ask themselves, as Nicole was saying, does this make it easier for the user? Is this beneficial to them? And, I think that they need to have a question, whatever the product is, is this beneficial? Is this for this group of people? Like, for instance, people that don't have children versus people that do, because though I have children, I don't have them at home. So I'm not running around with little kids, whereas Nicole was saying, and I really appreciated what she said earlier about, the millennials and the hair flowing and, the white, everything is perfect. And because we know that's a fairy tale. That is, when they're advertising a fairy tale that doesn't really exist, and there's a reality. And so I think that the majority of the women who don't live that fairy tale go, it's because we know that that's not real. I mean, what's real is what Nicole was saying, where her son's running around with peanut butter and, wait, hold on, I got something to finish here, that's real, So anyway, I do think it's important that they value their customer and the customer feedback.
Well, and I think you just made a good point, which is for a long time, a lot of that perfect life stuff. I mean, there were bloggers, and I mean, Deuce was one, and there was C. Jane Run and her sister that was in the plane crash, and Stephanie, I think her name was. And there were a bunch of these people that basically built brands on being a mother, and they had, perfect little craft sessions and all stuff. The thing is, more and more women, I think, are not seeing that as aspirational anymore. They're just seeing it as, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to swear, but complete bullshit, basically.
Right.
And they're like, not, so marketers are thinking, oh, I'm hooking these people. And really what you're doing is alienating your customer base, which I think is interesting.
Can I just say something real quick? Yeah. Because then there's the flip side, like you have Scary Mommy and you have these other blogs that are like the anti-perfect mom.
Yeah.
Badass moms. And we have like wine play dates and stuff. And then that's kind of run its course too. Like, oh, we swear and we drink wine and our kids run around and play date. Right. And I think that's also like not true. I'm not sitting around all day drinking wine as my kids run around. So, I mean, I have a little bit of badassery going on, but I think it's funny that there's these two extremes of like the white lace mom and then the badass mom drinking, and just like flipping it off and stuff. But so I said there's got to be like this middle ground, because I don't think either one of those is completely true or aspirational, because people see through it. You have to.
Well, I think that's really true, but I think that kind of leads me to the next thing that I kind of want to bring up, which is, particularly in this industry, I've seen it lately. It seems like all of a sudden everybody's noticed that, oh my God, there are women in this industry. What do we do? You know, and so all of a sudden it feels like there's women's, I mean, okay, and yes, hi, I started a group based on women decorators, and I do this podcast, and I have another podcast that's about women in business, but I already knew women were there. I just hadn't figured out that I wanted to talk to them yet. But it feels to me like a lot of companies have suddenly gone, wow, women, who knew? You know, and so they're kind of trying to roll out these initiatives to talk to their female customers or serve their female customers better, or recruit female customers to their company, or whatever they want to do. But the problem is a lot of them, I think, aren't doing very well at it. And I kind of wanted to discuss that because there was a comment, Eric, I don't know if you can find it, but there was a comment that Cindy put up about the young girls in the pussycat outfits at trade shows. Yeah, you mean like at trade shows and the young girls in the pussycat outfits. And it feels like a lot of the marketing that gets done is either of that sort, where the woman is, you know, it's clearly, well, okay, maybe if, you know, you're a lesbian and you like women, you could get into the women in the pussycat outfits, but most of that's clearly for men. And then you have now all of a sudden these same marketers that were doing the young girls in the pussycat outfits coming in and going, women are important, girl power, girl boss, blah, blah. And they don't have the infrastructure to do it. So there is a question in here. Bear with me a moment, I'll get to it. I guess what I want to ask you is, again, kind of similar to the question that I asked you earlier. If you could give these companies that are starting these women-centered programs advice, what would you tell them that they should do or they need to do? And I would say one thing is, if you're having a woman-centered program, it might be a really awesome idea if you had a woman running it. Just, you know, that's my theory. But other than that, Nicole, I'm going to start with you on that one. What do you think of this phenomenon?
Well, gee, I mean, for years we've known that women make up more than 50% of decorators, right? I mean, we know that often it's women in their 40s and 50s, but we also know there's a lot of younger women as well entering the market who are doing this in retirement. So they're all across the board. I mean, and I said this before, but it's really simple. It's like, have multiple customer avatars and talk to those people. You know, and this is kind of a silly example, but like toenail fungus, right? So if you I'm just using this because it's popping in my head, but let's just say you're marketing to a few different groups of women. So a younger woman who doesn't have kids is going to be more concerned with having her toes look hot on spring break so she can wear those spiky heels. And a much older person may be more concerned with comfort, right? That they want to wear those comfortable sandals. The way you get to those women is different. And again, it sounds like it's not rocket science, but it's literally finding those ideal customer avatars, figuring out exactly what their concerns or problems are, what keeps them up at night about their decorating business, and address those concerns. Again, are people really doing it? If they were really doing it, wouldn't the advertising and the marketing be spot on? I mean, you would be really, like, they would be looking at the advertisements and saying, oh my gosh, you're in my head. Like, that's exactly the problem I'm having. I want to know more. So that's where I think it needs to start. So even though if we're saying, yes, we're doing focus groups, you're not really mining it good enough. Do you know what programs these people watch on TV? Do you know what their daily schedule is? Like, drilling down into those, like, different age groups and different types, married, not married, kids, not kids, running the business, alone or with a spouse or with a team. Like, it's drilling down into really understanding who those people are. And once you know their exact problems, then you can walk back and show how your solution addresses that.
Well, and that's, I think, part of my quarrel with this whole thing is I feel like they went, wow, women, and then they spent like zero time trying to figure out, they rolled out these women-centered initiatives supposedly, but they didn't spend any time to figure out what women actually would want from their company. And I don't know. Jenny, what are your thoughts on this one?
First, Cindy must have been in Long Beach in January because the cat women were all over the place running around there. Yeah, like Nicole said, they need to pick, I feel like they're picking one and they're going with it, and it's not for everyone. And I mean, I don't know how you do market to everyone.
Well,
without
you don't.
having the mom and the kids or the dog or like the millennials with the perfect house. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. But as far as women, like the cats, stop doing that. Stop. The Angelique commercial. I mean, that's basically the Angelique commercial.
It's the
2020
version of the Angelique commercial. Yeah, it is kind of, that's very true. Well, and I think that's maybe something that we need to talk about a little bit, so I'm going to stick a, you keep doing this to me, Jenny. I'm going to stick a pin in this one, and I'm going to ask Cheryl the current question, which is, if you're starting a women-centered initiative and you're a company, what should you be doing? And then we'll circle back to the other thing.
Okay, wait a sec. Did you change the question on me?
What was the question before?
Okay, so I was just gonna, we were gonna talk about, I was just gonna say to you about marketing to women, that I think instead of generalizing or stereotyping women as a whole, which is what Jenny was talking about, not being able to
Right.
advertise to everyone the same, is that you put them in categories. And
which makes sense.
Right. I just was doing an article for GoPro on back to school, and I was saying that very thing, that you can't advertise to the elementary children the same as you do college kids. The substrates are not going to be the same,
No.
I mean, it's the same. And so, but can you advertise to all three? Yes, you can. Can you market to all three? Absolutely. But you need to know what your market is and who your market is, and aim that direction. Like, elementary kids, this is, this fits for them. Middle age, high school, that, to me, knowing your audience and knowing who your market is, I think, is the key to successfully advertising and marketing.
I would agree with that. And I think, and maybe this is, like I said, there are things that I see that just kind of get under my skin. And this is one that I've seen lately that I just feel like we need to have a discussion about this, because I've seen some pretty major companies that are supposedly rolling out women-centered initiatives, and they're not, and they don't, and I'm just like, and I mean, and there was one where they had this big rollout for this, women-centered thing, and they really basically just went through their company and found 3 women who worked in the company and brought them to this rollout. And I was like, I don't even begin to know how to tell you how just not right that is. And I mean, and I'm not saying that, one of the things that is put forward to me sometimes because I talk about these issues is, oh, well, you don't like men, or you think men are oppressing women, or you think, and I'm like, no, I don't. I like men. I like men a lot. I would marry a man if I found one that, but I think we need to talk about these issues because it's important, because as Nicole was saying earlier, women make up a pretty big percentage of this industry. And we're still encountering in 2020 things like you should ask your husband or talk to your boss. Maybe he can tell you what to do. We're still running into that crap.
Yep, it's true.
And excuse me for the rant, but I guess that's the question that maybe is underneath all the questions that I sent you guys. How do we get past that? Can we get past that? Is it okay? That's the question. How do we get past that? Is it possible to get past that? I'm just going to leave it at that. How do we get past that? I don't know. Cheryl, you're smiling at me. So are you just going, oh my God, please, can I have a more open-ended question?
Well, I'm just thinking, I think it's a difficult question, to be honest, because I think that there are situations that really, like bringing up 50%. The truth is, in my industry anyway, sublimation, I'm going to say, I'm going to say that it's 90% of the women, not 50%. And so, when I hear people say, or, they'll text me and they'll say, well, I have to talk to my husband, I immediately think, really? Because I mean, if you are trying to supplement your income, you're trying to, help in the household, but you got to still ask him, can I buy this? Can I spend this money? And maybe it's a two-way street with them, and maybe they both do the same thing. It's out of respect, and that's awesome. But typically that's not, that's usually not the case. It's more like, well, my husband's not going to let me buy it right now. He doesn't think I'm going to be able to make money with it, blah, blah, blah. So, to me, I don't know that that's going to change. I really don't. I think it's you can be hopeful. And I think it's the individual people that have to take a stand but forget the household for a second and just talking about businesses. I think part of it is that we need to not buy from those companies who stereotype and it's like we have a choice. And if we look the other way and we just go, okay, well, that's just the way it is, then they're going to keep doing it. Why wouldn't they? They're still being rewarded for it.
That's very true. And Eric, can you put up the comment that Jean just, we should remember that there is power as consumers in giving feedback to companies regarding their marketing when there is an objection. We can be mindful and stand up. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. I think that's totally true. Thank you. Yeah. I think you're totally right that, talking about it and letting companies know when they're not doing what they should be doing. The problem with that is it can get friggin' exhausting after a while, but I think you're totally right. Nicole, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, the words that keep coming to my mind are personal responsibility. I mean, like Cheryl said, there are people in that situation. In my situation, my husband is co-owner of the business. However, I run the business. And so I'll say to him, I'm going to do this. And he never says, oh, it's like me giving him a courtesy. And I don't want to go down this path necessarily, but, we've all heard about Aunt Jemima, how Pepsi is now going to rename that. And it's like, it took you this to figure it out. Right. And so I think on both sides, like there's companies. And so companies have to start looking at who are our customers and what is the breadth and diversity of their experience and how do we include as many of them as possible? And how do we not stereotype? Like, we all know what stereotypes are, right? We all know that.
Sure.
We should be smart of. So yes, we can choose who we buy from. We can choose in our companies, how do we market to people? We can give feedback. And I said, my kids even made the comment about Aunt Jemima. And I said, how is it that Pepsi, like with the hugeness of them, that no one said to them, gee, this is really tone deaf. Like, how did it take this long and take what's happening now to wake them up? And so to me, there is an amount of awareness. Like, I also, not to go off on another tangent, but I'll just say this. I'm also a poet and I work on a poetry journal, and we have been all inclusive for 10 years from day one, all inclusive, promoting diversity. And so we have never had to change our messaging because we have always been that way, right? And now we see a lot of people in the landscape trying to change their mission and trying to change their marketing. And if you were just doing the right things from day one, you wouldn't be scrambling now. If you viewed women as a viable market, with a lot of us having diverse situations and different lifestyles and having to make choices in different ways, you wouldn't be scrambling now. You would understand. So again, it's all about understanding the diversity of your landscape and what kind of people you're dealing with. You know, if there are women who, like you said, have to talk to their husband because yes, maybe it's a startup venture and maybe they do have concerns with money, then maybe you figure out a way to help them. Maybe it's payment plan, no interest. Like you recognize that this could be a real thing that's happening and you address those things, right? So I think it's not being tone deaf. It's understanding that you have a responsibility to respond to what's happening around you and to the real things that people are dealing with in their lives. So can we change everything at once? No, but we can put the message out. We can make our own choices in what we buy. We can make choices in how we market, right? So it's
well, that's a good point too.
We do, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Jenny, what do you think?
Back to what Cheryl was saying about the wives having to ask the husbands. I kind of feel like that's a generational thing. For my customers, I see that more in the middle-aged and up women versus the younger women who are buying things for their business or, for personal needs, where I'll send prices and they'll say, "Oh, let me check with my husband. I'll get back with you." Kind of. I mean, I've had people respond like that, and I know them, so I know how old they are. So that's why I feel like it's kind of more of a generational thing, and maybe as time goes on, that will kind of fade away a little bit more,
Well, and I think you're right, and there are generational differences in how people were brought up and how they think about things. I think that's totally true. I mean, there are things that I kind of go, "Oh yeah, okay." I kind of take certain things for granted because of the era that I grew up in, that I have younger friends that they're like, "Oh, that so doesn't fly at all." And I'm just like, really? But, so I totally get that. But one of the things that I really like that came out of what we were just talking about was it's kind of incumbent on us to help make the changes and not support the behavior that we think is not acceptable, or if somebody, like, for example, if somebody rolls out a women-centered initiative and it's just really not well done, we don't have to play. We don't have to be part of it, even if it's the most well-meaning. We're trying to help, but I honestly don't know that I would think if somebody just rolled something out kind of haphazardly because they went, "Oh, hey, look, there's women and they have money and I want some," then I don't know that that's well-meaning. Well, that's kind of how it feels like sometimes. I mean, it's.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the speaking up and saying something. When I did buy the automatic press back in 2015, the company that I had narrowed it down to two. The company I did not buy from, they had a United States distributor, and I did complain to the company and the distributor about the way I was treated at the trade show. Never heard anything about it, but now a few years later, they do have a new distributor. So maybe they got
smart.
It finally got through.
Well, that's another thing is you kind of have to, these issues get brought up and you talk about them and you do things like this and you complain and you go to and then sometimes nothing happens and you kind of feel like, and I don't know, maybe it's just maybe we're experiencing what a lot of other groups that aren't the majority are experiencing, which is that you just have to keep pushing and hoping that eventually you make a difference, I guess, which I don't want to be like a bummer or anything, but And then, Eric, can you put up the quote from Cindy, please, that she just put up? Eric went, there he is. I noticed on one of the sites where I buy from, they have put up their stand on issues at hand. I don't really want to hear what their stand is. I am just wanting to buy some embroidery items. And I think that's also a thing too, is what's the point where it's too much? What's the point where it's like, where am I going with this? I know there's a question in here. It's just not quite coming out yet. But I think maybe that's the question. What's the point where it's just like, okay, that's enough now? Or is it incumbent on each individual company to figure out what they care about and what they think is important? And some will talk about things and some won't. And you vote with your dollars based on whether or not you agree or support, or what. Is that just kind of part of marketing? I guess that's my question, maybe. I don't know. You're nodding, Cheryl. So yeah, that's kind of how.
Yeah, well, I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking about, I am a very principled person, and anyone that knows me knows when if I take a stand, I'm taking a stand. But I don't necessarily, I loved what Nicole said, because, when you do the right thing, you don't have to go back and correct it.
This is true. This is very true.
And to me, when you have to make this big to-do about correcting what should have already been done, shame on you. And but I don't want you to correct it, I was going to say for my sake, but it's like I got an interesting email from somebody marketing something, and it said, I'm going to be doing a live, tune in, blah, blah, blah. And then the next email was, I can't do this live. I apologize. I will share it with you tomorrow. And it was all about, not doing the right thing. I'm trying to be careful as I navigate through this, but saying something because they believed it was right, but because, in my opinion, they got bullied and they backed down. And for me, that's an issue. It's almost like I don't even want to receive your emails anymore, because if you're going to allow somebody to bully you, again, I think it's important you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. But at what expense and whose expense? And so, I do have some very strong feelings about, all the things that are happening, because again, I think if you did it right from the start, then you don't have to, put it in my face day in and day out, trying to ask for forgiveness, if you will. It's on you. Enough. I just need to buy embroidery stuff. I just need to buy, I don't need to have my email filled up with your apologies for something that should have already been done ages ago.
Okay. And I think one of the things that you said there that I really like, and I can't go too far into this because we're really perilously close to bonus time right now, but that always happens. But one of the things that you really said is that I really liked was, I think my problem with a lot of these women-centered initiatives is that it's people suddenly going like, oh, we just discussed, if you really wanted to help women, if you knew that women were part of the industry and you wanted to support and educate them and talk to them in the space they're in, you would have these programs already.
Right.
And that's
Absolutely.
kind of what's really bugging me is like all of a sudden people are going, women. And I'm like, dude, we were here all the time. Where have you been?
Right.
You know? And so I think that's an interesting point, and it's something that I definitely like. And Aaron just private chatted me and said, we are near to bonus time, so let's see if we can start wrapping it up. So I am going to start wrapping it up because, yes, we just hit bonus time right now. Yay! So what I want to say to you ladies is thank you so much. And before we go and bring Aaron back in, if each of you would just let everybody know where people can find you, that would be really great. Jenny, let's start with you. Website address, Facebook, whatever you...
On Facebook, we're Z-Shirts. It's at itsazshirt.com.
Okay. All right, Nicole?
I'm at strandwritingservices.com and also at Strand Writing Services on Facebook and Instagram.
Cool. And Cheryl?
My Facebook group is Sublimation for Beginners and Beyond. And my website is www.sublimationsummit.com. So.
All right. And everybody should go look at that because it's coming up and it's going to happen. All right. Aaron, if you're out there, would you like to pop back in like magic and take back your platform?
There
he is. And there's Terry. Oh, Terry hung out for the whole thing. Yay.
I do have history, I think.
That was incredible. You guys are amazing. So much to think about, so much to take in. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. And yes, make sure that you guys go check them out, get connected with them, continue the conversation. Kristine, can you tell us about the Women in Garment Decorating group as well?
Women in Garment Decoration group on Facebook, women only. And you can find us if you just search Women in Garment Decoration, we'll come right up. And please come join us if you're not already a member. We're a good group, very supportive, over 700 members now. And I'm really proud of the space that we've created there. And I think I tell the ladies in the group often, we are already a force in this industry and we're just going to get to be more of a force. And so I hope that all of you that aren't currently members will come and join us. We would love to have you. And Thank you, Eric.
Awesome.
For putting it up.
Well, again, thank you all so much. It was amazing. And yes, bonus time is here. So we did it. And Kristine, great job hosting.
Thank you.
So we will talk to you, all of you, very soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. And but thank you, Eric. Cool. Wow, guys, that was pretty darn amazing. Appreciate all of the regulators and all of the comments and just a great conversation, an opportunity to talk about things that need to be talked about. And so boy, I'm not sure there's much more that we can add, Terry. So
I don't think so either, other than to wrap up the show.
Yeah, let's do that. So real quick, before we get out of here, though, we do have a couple things to share as far as Eric's got Demystifying Next Level Digitizing webinar that is now in a recorded format. So we'll keep making sure you guys are aware of that. Better running, bolder, more beautiful embroidery with a faster cycle from concept to completion. If you want to check that out and get access to it, you can do so at bit.ly/EricDD. And that's Eric with an H, ERICHDD. And then today at 2:30 Mountain Time, what's that, 1:30 Terry time? I'll do this whole dance again. But at 2:30 Mountain Time, the Take Up is happening. And today is all about basic cap design considerations. So always wonderful information over there at the Take Up, and we're super proud of what Eric's putting together on top of what he does for us here at Two Regular Guys. So make sure you check that out at facebook.com/Eric.Campbell, and that's again ERICH.Campbell. What about you, Terry? What do you have coming up?
Well, I put a few things back on my schedule here, Aaron.
Yeah, nice.
That seem to be happening. So the DAX show in Chicagoland, I will be presenting Being a Great Screen Printer, and that's going to be Saturday, August 8th at 10:20 a.m. You and I will be also doing some panels at that event as well. At the Impressions Expo in Fort Worth, 10 things you need to know about being a DTG printer, and that is Friday, August 28th from 1 to 2:15. My upcoming complete screen printing business course, Workhorse Products in Phoenix, that'll be August 22nd and 23rd. I will be at Atlas Screen Supply in Chicago, September 19th and 20th. And as always, all my upcoming 2020 classes and events are at terrycombs.com under the tab Tour Dates. And Aaron, completely updated. How about you?
Wow, completely updated. I love it, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, nothing really new to report, so we'll just leave it. I'd appreciate everybody going over to oursuccessgroup.com and checking it out and getting involved in that. We've got a success tracker program over there that people are using to reach their goals, and so we'd love to help you reach your goal. It's only a $20 investment, so worth checking out, oursuccessgroup.com. But I think with that being said, Terry, let's call it a day. We want to thank our guest today. I want to thank our host, Kristine Shreve, and what a wonderful job she did. And I'm going to butcher some names here, so I apologize in advance. But I also want to thank Jenny Livesey. Am I saying that right? Anybody have a... Sorry, Jenny, if I'm blowing that. And then Cheryl Kuchek and Nicole Rolander for their time and all of the great information and great discussion. So again, keep the discussion going in the comments section. Reach out to them. I can't tell you how impressed I am with that group that we had with us here today, Terry.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And we also want to thank our show producer, Eric Campbell. You can find him at ericcampbell.com. And thanks to our sponsor, Impressions Expo.
Yes, and Cheryl did remind me that I am speaking at the summit. Yes, so once we get those things dialed in, so we talked about it already, but definitely look forward to seeing you guys all in person back at the Sublimation Summit there in Peachtree, Georgia. So forgot about that part, Terry. So I didn't forget about it. I just yes. So anyway, all right. Well, cool. Thanks everybody again. And next week we're going to be talking to Nathan Lieber, and we're going to be talking about the changing marketplace, kind of order sizing downward, and how to manage that, especially as a screen printer or people that aren't digital decorating yet. So that's going to be a fantastic conversation. Always great talking to Nathan. He's been very active over there at Screen Printing Magazine and whatnot, and great young man that I think is a bright spot in the future of our industry for sure.
Absolutely. He and I have had this conversation about downsizing many times, so I'm really excited about him being on the show. And Aaron, until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And we are the Two Regular Guys. Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.